there are so many of you in here. We want to make sure those of you in the back can see us too while we're speaking. First thing I want to tell you is we did not call each other the night before and say we have to wear the same color. But we have been out on book tour now for more than a week together, and we're starting to do that mind meld thing where we think alike. And we were really excited when we got to your school that we noticed that we also have a mind meld with your librarian, that he also knew to wear a black shirt. So, that was funny how that worked. We are both out promoting our very newest books. Mine is called Revealed, and it is the 7th book in the Missing series. And Lisa McMahon's is called Island of Legends, and it's the 4th book in the Unblessed series. And as he mentioned, I do have a lot of other books, and when we get to the question and answer time, if you have a question about one of the books that I haven't talked about in this presentation, you are welcome to ask that. I'm always excited to answer any question you have. I also noticed that a lot of times the question that people ask is about my book, Among the Hidden. So I'll give you a little bit of a background on that before I start talking about the Missing series. This is the first book in the Shadow Children series. And the question people always want to know about this book is how I got the idea for third children being illegal. And it was because when my kids were 1 and 3, and here actually is a picture of what they look like when they were 1 and 3. Aren't they cute? They are now 20 and almost 22. They're both in college, so as you can probably figure out, they don't look like this anymore. But when they were this age, my husband and I started talking about whether or not we wanted to have a third child. And this was a really hard decision for us to make, partly because of the ages our kids were. When they were being all sweet and loving and wrapping their arms around us and saying, "We love you, Mommy. We love you, Daddy," we would think, it is so wonderful being parents. We are just going to have 20 kids. Well, that was kind of a delayed reaction. Like, that's such a big number. It took you guys a few minutes to be like, whoa. Other times, when our kids were not being so sweet and loving and wonderful, and if any of you have really little brothers and sisters, you might know what I'm talking about. When our kids were doing things like throwing temper tantrums because, "Mommy, my socks are crooked, make it stop," we would think, it is really hard being parents. There's no way you can handle having a third child. If we had 3 kids, we would be outnumbered. So we would go back and forth, and it is really hard to make a big decision when you keep changing your mind every few seconds. And so we started looking for something that would be very factual to help us make our decision. And so one of the things that we started talking about was the issue of overpopulation. Whether or not there might already be too many people in the world, and whether that meant that we should not have a third child. But I found that issue really frustrating because I wasn't sure how concerned about I should be about overpopulation. So one night, and we've been talking about this for just a long, long time, I thought, if overpopulation were really that bad a problem, there would be a law that nobody can have more than 2 kids. And right away, as soon as I thought that, it was like this giant light bulb went over my head. And I thought, wow, what if there were a law like that? And so in Among the Hidden, that's what happens. Luke, the main character, has had to spend his entire life hiding because he's a third child in a place where people are not allowed to have that many kids. Now, when I wrote Among the Hidden, I thought, that's it, I'm done with that whole overpopulation thing. On to some other type of book. But then pretty much everybody I knew said, you have got to write more about Luke. We have to know what happens next. And so I am such a nice person. I wrote 6 more books. Now, doing that made me realize that it was a lot of fun to write a series of books. I already knew it was a lot of fun to write a book, but it was so much fun to continue the character characters' lives from one book to the next. The only problem was that by the time I finally finished this series, people started saying to me, well, what is your next series going to be? When is it coming out? And I had no idea. Have you guys ever had the experience where you were sitting in class and your teacher gives you some kind of writing assignment that you have to write right that minute, and your mind goes totally blank? You cannot think of a single thing to write about. Who's ever had that happen today? Okay, wow, just about every day. See one guy in front going, no, that never happens to me. But I think he's the only one like that. So if you just raise your hand